Manned ships kept firing, kept hitting the exact same points over and over. The Zathric. Military headquarters sent out a desperate broadcast on all frequencies. We surrender. Cease fire. We accept all terms. Please, stop the attack. The human fleet did not respond. Did not slow, did not stop. The ships just kept firing, kept destroying, kept executing their programming. Lieutenant Chris Hayes, back on Earth, turned away from the screens. His face was pale. They're not programmed to accept surrender, he said quietly. We never gave them that option. Once they launch, they complete their mission objectives. That's it. Morris stood in the observation room watching the battle unfold. He felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not revenge, not even sadness. Just a hollow emptiness where his family used to be. This destruction wouldn't bring them back. But at least the people who killed them were paying a price. The last shield generator failed. Zethro's prime lay exposed, defenseless beneath the human fleet. The orbital defense was gone. The home fleet was destroyed or scattered. The planet was helpless. And the human ships kept coming, but they didn't fire on the cities. They didn't target civilian centers. Instead, they began hitting military installations with surgical precision. Shipyards exploded. Weapons factories were reduced to rubble. Training facilities were demolished. Military command bunkers were penetrated and destroyed. The AI had a target list. It was working through it with mechanical efficiency. The Council observation posts captured everything. The galaxy watched as humanity's machines systematically dismantled the Zathric Empire's ability to wage war. It was efficient, brutal, and terrifyingly precise. The ships never missed, never hesitated, never showed mercy or cruelty. They just destroyed what they were programmed to destroy. Admiral Yarkuth gathered the remnants of his fleet, maybe 60 ships that were still combat capable. He made one final attempt to stop the human attack, throwing his surviving forces at the Ghost Fleet in a desperate charge. It was brave, futile, and tragic. The human ships tore through the Zathric vessels like they weren't even there. Yarkoth's. A flagship took a direct hit to the bridge. His last transmission was simple. Tell the Council that they were wrong. Tell them that diplomacy without strength is just words. Tell them that humans understand what we forgot. Sometimes the only response to violence is overwhelming force. Then his ship broke apart and the Admiral was gone. The attack lasted 6 hours total. When it ended, the Zathric Empire's military capability had been reduced by 95%. Their fleet was debris orbiting their homeworld. Their defensive platforms were wreckage. Their production facilities were ruins. But their cities stood intact. Their civilian population was unharmed. The hospitals, schools, homes, all untouched. The human fleet formed up in orbit and broadcast a single message. It was the only communication they had sent since entering Zathric space. The voice was synthesized, emotionless, mechanical. Military objectives complete. The debt for Colony 7 has been paid. Earth remembers. Earth does not forgive. Then the ships jumped to hyperspace and vanished, leaving behind a shattered empire and a galaxy that would never look at humanity the same way again. In the Council chamber, silence reigned. Thousands of species stared at the screens showing the devastation. The Zathric homeworld was burning, not from indiscriminate bombardment, but from precise surgical strikes. It was somehow worse than total destruction. It showed that humanity knew the difference between soldiers and civilians, between military and civilian targets, and had chosen deliberately where to draw the line. Could have killed everyone, Velkosh said quietly. They had the power, the capability, but they didn't. Corthane nodded slowly. They proved a point. They're not barbarians who kill indiscriminately. They're something more dangerous. They're barbarians who kill with precision, who understand the rules and choose when to break them. Skether, who had been so confident, was gone. Fled back to his homeworld to deal with the catastrophe. The Zathric Empire would survive, but it would never again be a military power. The humans had seen to that. Paul Bennett stood alone in the center of the Council chamber. You wanted to know what happens when you push humans too far. Now you know. We tried your way. We trusted your system. Colony 7 was the price of that trust. This, he gestured to the screens, showing burning Zathric installations. This is the price of breaking it. The Ghost Fleet was already on its way back to Earth. Mission accomplished. No casualties taken. They had done in 6 hours what the Galactic Council couldn't do in 6 months. They had delivered justice. Brutal and efficient and terrible. But justice nonetheless. The galaxy would never forget the day. Humanity stopped asking for permission to defend itself. The Galactic Council chamber had never been this quiet. 2,000 species representing civilizations spread across the galaxy sat in absolute silence. The screens still showed images of Zathros Prime. Smoke rising from destroyed military installations while untouched cities gleamed nearby. The contrast was deliberate, calculated, and terrifying. Ambassador Velkosh finally broke the silence, his tentacles moving in slow, deliberate patterns. This is unprecedented. Completely unprecedented. The humans have violated every principle of council law. Every treaty regarding warfare, every concept of civilized behavior. A delegate from the silicon-based Quarian species spoke up, their voice like grinding rocks. And yet they followed rules. They could have destroyed everything, but they didn't. They separated military from civilian with surgical precision. That's not the action of mindless savages. It's worse, another delegate countered. It's the action of calculated killers. They chose what to destroy and what to spare. That makes it premeditated, planned murder on a massive scale. Velkosh's color shifted to a deep purple, indicating severe stress. The Council must act. We must sanction humanity. We must isolate their worlds. We must show the galaxy that such behavior has consequences. What consequences? Someone called out from the back. A fine? Trade restrictions? That's what you wanted to give the Zathrics for murdering 47,000 humans. Why would the humans care about your sanctions now? The chamber erupted in argument. Some species wanted to punish Earth severely, to make an example that would prevent other species from following humanity's path. Others pointed out that humanity had already left the Council voluntarily, making sanctions meaningless. A few quietly suggested that maybe, just maybe, the Zathrics had gotten what they deserved. Captain Paul Bennett stood in the center of the chaos, waiting. He had stayed behind as Earth's final representative, the last human willing to face the Council's judgment. His uniform was crisp, his posture relaxed. He looked like a man who had already won and was just waiting for everyone else to realize it. Eventually, Velkosh called for order again. Captain Bennett, you stand here representing a species that has committed war crimes, violated galactic law, and rejected the authority of this council. What do you have to say for yourself? Paul smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. You're absolutely right, Ambassador. We violated your laws. We ignored your procedures. We acted like the barbarians you always suspected we were. He paused, looking around at the assembled species. And we don't care. The chamber exploded again, but Paul kept talking, his voice cutting through the noise. You told us to wait 6 months for justice. We waited 3 and delivered it ourselves. You wanted to find the Zathrics? Maybe impose trade sanctions? We removed their ability to threaten anyone ever again. You believe in dialogue and measured responses. We believe in protecting our people by any means necessary. Commander Corthane, the military observer, spoke from his position. You have demonstrated your capability for war, Captain. You've shown the galaxy that humanity can build weapons that rival anything we have. But you've also made enemies of every species in this chamber. How do you think Earth will survive alone? Paul turned to face the veteran commander. You're wrong, Admiral. We haven't made enemies of everyone. We've shown everyone what happens when you have humanity as an ally versus having humanity as an enemy. Some species will hate us for what we did. Others will respect us. And a few will realize they'd rather have our ghost fleet protecting them than hunting them. It was a bold claim, but Paul had intelligence reports to back it up. Action is forbidden under Council law. We're not part of the Council anymore, Paul reminded him. Your laws don't apply to us. And besides, our AI has strict protocols. It will only target military installations. The Zathric civilians are in no danger unless they're standing in the middle of a weapons facility. Corthane spoke up from his position. Captain Bennett, your fleet has demonstrated incredible capability. You've shown us what humanity can do when unleashed. But you've also made enemies of every species in this chamber. When this is over, humanity will stand alone. Paul nodded slowly. We've always stood alone, Admiral. The Council was just an illusion of community. A committee that took 6 months to condemn murder while the murderers walked free. We're better off without you. Another delegate, a floating gas being from the Nephrin cluster, drifted forward. If humanity is so confident, why send machines? Why not fight with your own ships, your own soldiers? Because our soldiers are too valuable to waste on revenge, Paul answered. Every human life matters to us, so we built weapons that could fight without risking our people. We made them smart enough to win and disciplined enough to follow rules. Unlike some species, we actually care about proportional response. The gas being pulsed with anger. Proportional? You're about to destroy an entire military. Zathrics destroyed an entire colony, Paul countered. Every man, woman, and child. Our machines will destroy military targets only. That's proportional. If we wanted revenge, we'd have programmed them to do what the Zathrics did. Trust me, we could have. The debate continued for hours, but it was meaningless. The Ghost Fleet was already more than halfway to Zethros Prime. The Zethric Empire scrambled every available ship to defend their homeworld. 420 warships formed up in defensive positions around the planet. Admiral Yarkith, the finest military commander the Zathrics had, took personal command of the defense. The Council observation posts tracked the human fleet's progress. 72 ships moving in perfect formation, their course direct and unwavering. No attempts at communication. No demands for surrender. Just cold, mechanical purpose. They're not even trying to hide, Corthane observed. They want the Zathrics to see them coming. They want them to prepare their best defense. It's psychological warfare. Ilkash's tentacles had turned pale with stress. This cannot be allowed to happen. The precedent it would set would be catastrophic. Any species could simply leave the Council and wage war whenever they felt justified. Then maybe the Council should try actually protecting its members, Paul said from his position. Instead of protecting them from consequences. The Ghost Fleet crossed into the Zathric home system. Every sensor in the region locked onto them. Every military commander in the galaxy watched through the observation feeds. This would be the battle that determined humanity's place in the galactic order. Either the Zathrics would crush the human machines and prove that civilization could still defend itself, or the humans would win and prove that brutal efficiency trumped diplomatic solutions. The Zathric defensive fleet formed a sphere around their planet. 420 ships, all of them veterans of border conflicts and police actions. They were ready. They were prepared. They had every advantage except one. The human fleet didn't care if it died. It only cared if it won. In the Council chamber, thousands of species held their breath and watched. The future of galactic civilization was about to be decided by mathematics, programming, and the cold logic of war machines that had been designed by humans who learned the hard way that sometimes survival meant becoming the monster. Battle management. Officer Lisa Chang sat in the command center beneath Earth's military headquarters, surrounded by screens showing delayed feeds from Council observation posts. The entire planet was watching. Every human on Earth, every survivor from Colony 7, everyone who had lost someone, were all waiting to see what their revenge looked like. The Ghost Fleet approached the Zathric defensive sphere at high speed. The Zathric formation was impressive, a perfect defensive arrangement that protected every angle of the planet. Admiral Yarkith had positioned his strongest ships at key points, his fastest ships in reaction positions, and his longest-range vessels in supporting positions. It was textbook military strategy, the kind taught in every military academy in the galaxy. The human fleet didn't slow down. They didn't adjust course. They just kept coming, accelerating faster and faster. They're going to ram the formation, Corthane said from the Council chamber, his voice carrying shock. They're using themselves as kinetic weapons. 20 human ships suddenly broke formation and accelerated to incredible speeds. Their engines burned brighter than suns as they pushed toward a significant fraction of light speed. The Zathric defensive fleet tried to shoot them down. The targeting computers couldn't track something moving that fast. The ships were just blurs on the sensors. The impacts were devastating. When an object moving at relativistic speeds hits another object, the energy release is enormous. Each human ship that struck the Zathric formation released energy equivalent to multiple nuclear weapons. The explosions bloomed in space like deadly flowers, vaporizing entire sections of the defensive sphere. The careful formation that Yarkoth had arranged was suddenly full of holes. Ships that had been protecting each other were now drifting wreckage. The Zathric crews who survived were in shock, unable to process what had just happened. Then the real attack began. The remaining 52 human ships dove into the gaps in the formation, moving like sharks through water. They didn't fight like any fleet Corthane had ever seen. There was no attempt to hold formation, no concern for protecting each other, no traditional tactics at all. Instead, each ship seemed to know exactly where every other ship was and what it was doing. They moved as one organism with 72 parts. When a Zathric ship fired at one human vessel, 3 others would already be flanking it from different angles. When the Zathrics tried to concentrate fire, the human ships would scatter and reform in seconds. Admiral Karen Rodriguez watched from orbit around Earth, her face grim. "God forgive us," she whispered. "We made them too good." The human ships weren't just destroying the Zathric fleet. They were dismantling it. Each vessel knew exactly where to shoot to disable weapons. It's exactly where to hit to cripple engines, exactly how to turn a warship into a helpless target. The nanite warheads were deployed, microscopic machines that ate through ship hulls like acid through paper. Lisa watched as a Zathric heavy battleship, one of the pride of their fleet, simply began falling apart. The hull plating separated into individual molecules. Systems failed one by one, and within minutes the ship was just a cloud of debris. The escape pods launched frantically, and the human ships ignored them completely. "They're following the rules of engagement," Lisa noted with surprise. "They're letting the crews escape." One of the other officers nodded. Dr. Walsh programmed them to minimize casualties. "They're not here to commit genocide. They're here to remove a military threat." But even with rules of engagement, the battle was brutal. The Zathric fleet was being systematically destroyed. Ships that had served for decades, crews that had trained for years. All of it being reduced to scrap metal by machines that felt nothing, feared nothing, and never got tired. Admiral Yarkoth tried everything. He split his fleet into smaller groups. The human ships adapted and split to match. He tried massing fire on single targets. The human ships dodged with impossible precision. He attempted to protect the orbital defense platforms. The human ships ignored his fleet entirely and went straight for the platforms. The platforms were massive structures, each one capable of defending an entire sector of space. They had been built over decades, positioned perfectly to protect Zethros Prime from any attack. The human fleet destroyed all 70 platforms in less than an hour. The planetary shields came online. The last line of defense. The shields were the most powerful in this sector of space, capable of withstanding sustained bombardment from an entire fleet. They could hold indefinitely as long as the generators had power. The Zathrics had been confident that even if everything else fell, the shields would save them. The human ships stopped firing. For a moment, the Zathric commanders hoped they had given up, that the shields had proven too strong. Then the ships began positioning themselves in orbit, arranging themselves at precise points above the planet. Dr. Henry Walsh had done his homework. Every shield generator location had been identified months ago through spy satellites and intelligence gathering. The generators were hardened, buried deep underground, protected by meters of reinforced concrete and metal. But they still had one weakness. They were on the planet's surface. The human ships began firing kinetic projectiles, not at the shields themselves, but at precise points on the planet's surface. The projectiles were simple metal rods, but they were moving at orbital velocities. When they hit the atmosphere, they burned like meteors. When they hit the ground, they struck with the force of bombs. Each projectile was aimed at a shield generator location. The underground facilities shook from the impacts. One by one, the generators began failing. The shields flickered, sections disappearing as the power grid collapsed. The Zathrics tried to repair the damage, but the who? THs of nothing. Third, a statement. Humanity sought justice through your system. You offered us paperwork. We withdraw from the Galactic Council effective immediately. Consider this our resignation. There was no mention of the Ghost Fleet. The Council would figure that out soon enough. The ships launched at midnight, Earth Standard Time. They rose from the asteroid belt in perfect formation, their engines burning cold and blue. No human crews, no life signs, just weapons and purpose. They aligned themselves towards Zethric space and engaged their hyperspace drives. 72 hours to target. Jake Morris watched them go from an observation deck on Mars. Beside him stood hundreds of other colony. 7 survivors, all of them silent. They had come to witness the beginning of Earth's revenge. It won't bring them back, someone said quietly. Jake nodded. No, but it will make sure the Zathrics never do it again. And maybe, just maybe, it will make the rest of the galaxy think twice before they attack humans. The Ghost Fleet vanished into hyperspace, crossing the light years between Earth and Zethros Prime. Behind them, humanity held its breath and waited. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson that should have never needed teaching. When you hurt humans, humans hurt you back. Not with lawyers or committees or debates. With steel and fire and machines that know nothing but how to kill. The age of humanity playing nice was over. The age of consequences had begun. The Galactic Council Emergency Session began exactly 3 hours after humanity's message reached the station. Ambassador Velkosh was floating frantically between delegates, his tentacles waving in patterns that indicated severe distress. The chamber that normally echoed with calm, measured debate was now filled with clicking, chirping, and electronic voices all trying to speak at once. Order. We must have order. Velkosh called out, his translator amplifying his voice. The humans have withdrawn from the council. This is unprecedented in modern galactic history. A delegate from the crystalline Shardian species chimed in, their body flashing with colored light. Withdrawn is too gentle a word. They have abandoned civilization itself. The message was an insult to everything the council stands for. The Zathric delegate, High Commander Zeekther, stood in his section of the chamber. His insectoid body was covered in ceremonial armor, but his compound eyes showed something that might have been worry. The humans are angry about the Colony 7 incident. This is understandable. But they cannot simply ignore council authority. Ignore. Another delegate laughed, a sound like grinding stones. They didn't ignore you, Commander. They told you exactly what they think of your authority. Nothing. Velkosh tried to restore order, but it was useless. The Council had never dealt with a member species that simply chose to leave. There were procedures for everything except this. Nobody knew what to do. Then the reports started coming in. A Council observation post at the edge of Zethric territory had detected ships. Multiple human vessels, moving in formation, entering Zethric space. They weren't broadcasting identification codes. They weren't responding to hails. They were just spreading out along the border like they were setting up a perimeter, Zeekther clicked his mandibles in what might have been amusement. So the humans send their little fleet to intimidate us. How primitive. How predictable. He turned to address the council. Humanity has 6 warships total. Outdated designs, poorly armed. My empire has 500 vessels, many of them battle-tested. If the humans want a war, they will learn the cost of their arrogance. Admiral Corthane, the Council's senior military observer, was studying the sensor data from the observation posts. He was a veteran of 100 conflicts, a strategic genius who had written the book on modern space warfare. Something about the human ships bothered him. These vessels are small, Corthane noted. Approximately 30 meters each. No life signs detected. They appear to be automated drones. Thor waved a limb dismissively. Drones? Even worse. Machines cannot match living commanders. They lack creativity, adaptability, instinct. This will be a massacre, but not the one the humans are planning. Corthane wasn't convinced. How many ships did the observation post detect? The technician checked their displays. Initial count shows 47 vessels, but more keep appearing. Current count is 61. No, wait, 72. They stopped coming through hyperspace. 72 automated warships. Corthane felt a chill run through his body. Humanity's entire known fleet was 6 ships, all crewed vessels meant for patrol and escort duty. Where had these come from? How long had the humans been building them? This changes nothing, Ziegther insisted. Numbers mean nothing without capability. I will dispatch a squadron to deal with these drones and send the humans a message about trespassing in Zathric space. The first engagement happened at Hive Station 7, a Zathric mining outpost on the edge of their territory. 12 Zathric warships moved to intercept 3 human vessels that had been detected near the station. The Zathric ships were heavy cruisers, each one massing 10 times more than the human drones. Their captains were confident. The battle lasted 8 minutes. The Council observers had feeds from both sides, watching as the engagement unfolded. The human ships didn't behave like any drones anyone had seen before. They moved with impossible precision, anticipating the Zathric weapons fire before it happened. They dodged and weaved through the incoming fire like dancers. Then they attacked. The human ships didn't waste time on the Zathric hulls or shields. They went straight for the weapon systems. Using surgical strikes to disable every gun, every missile launcher, every defensive system, the Zathric ships tried to target them, but the humans were too fast, too coordinated. Once the weapons were gone, the human ships methodically destroyed life support systems, then engines, then power cores. They didn't vaporize the Zathric ships. They dismantled them, turning proud warships into helpless debris. And then, most terrifyingly, they ignored the escape pods. They let the Zathric crews evacuate and drift away unharmed. When it was over, all 12 Zathric ships were dead in space, and the 3 human vessels jumped to hyperspace without taking any significant damage. The footage reached the council chamber within minutes. The delegates watched in horrified silence. These weren't normal drones. These were something else entirely. Something that fought with the efficiency of a machine and the tactical brilliance of the best commanders, combined into one terrifying package. They're learning, Corthane said quietly. Each engagement makes them better. The ships are sharing data, improving their strategies in real time. By the time they reach the homeworld, they'll be nearly perfect. Ziegther's confidence was wavering now. The council must intervene. These machines must be stopped. They violate every treaty about artificial warfare. The humans left the council, Velkosh reminded him. They're not bound by our treaties anymore. And even if they were, do you think they would care? They watched their children burn while we scheduled meetings. And what do we do? Someone asked V.E. Elkosh, wrapped his tentacles around himself in a gesture of helplessness. We follow procedure. We need to schedule a vote on possible intervention protocols. We need to form a committee to study the situation. We need to prepare recommendations for the full council. How long will that take? Ziegther demanded, his voice rising in pitch. 3 weeks minimum, Velkosh answered. Perhaps for if the debate is contentious. The chamber erupted in chaos again. 3 weeks. The human fleet would reach Zathros Prime in less than 48 hours. Any council response would come far too late. On Earth, Captain Paul Bennett stood in the human embassy building, which was now mostly empty. Every other human diplomat had been recalled after the withdrawal message was sent. Paul stayed behind because someone needed to represent Earth, even if Earth no longer wanted to be represented. He walked into the council chamber alone, surrounded by thousands of aliens. Every species in the galaxy seemed to have sent delegates to watch this crisis unfold. Paul stood in the center of the chamber and activated the human holographic display. You want to know what humanity learned in our wars? Paul said calmly. Everyone always asks us about Earth's violent history. You wonder how we survived when we fought each other so brutally. You treat our past like it was a shameful secret. He changed the display to show combat footage from Earth's history. Not the wars themselves, but the technology. Drones, artificial intelligence, automated defense systems. This is what we learned. We learned that the best weapon is one that doesn't hesitate, doesn't question, doesn't feel mercy unless you program it to. We learned that machines can be better killers than any living thing. The Ghost Fleet approaching Zethro's prime right now represents centuries of human military development. We built weapons to fight ourselves, then decided we never wanted to use them. So we locked them away. Until Colony 7. Until the Council proved it would rather debate than act. The Council demands that you recall your machines, immediately, or face the consequences. Paul laughed, a sound that echoed strangely in the vast chamber. Consequences. You murdered 47,000 humans and faced 0 consequences. You hid behind council procedure and diplomatic immunity. Now you want consequences for us? This is different, Velkosh protested. You're attacking a populated world. Military. Berating their victory. They thought they had gotten away with murder. They had no idea what was coming for them. 3 months had passed since the massacre at Colony 7. On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Velkosh was still organizing preliminary hearings. The Zathric Empire had sent their lawyers and diplomats. They claimed sensor malfunctions, territorial confusion, and miscommunication. The Council listened patiently and scheduled more meetings, but far from the Council chambers. Out. Beyond the orbit of Mars, something was being built in absolute secrecy. The asteroid belt had always been a good place to hide things. Thousands of rocks drifting in the darkness, most of them never visited or mapped. Earth had chosen the largest ones and hollowed them out. Turning them into construction facilities, Admiral Karen Rodriguez floated through the zero gravity of Construction Site Alpha. She wore a military uniform but no rank insignia. This project didn't officially exist, so neither did anyone working on it. She moved past workers welding hull plates and engineers testing control systems. The ships taking shape around her looked nothing like Earth's regular fleet. They were small, maybe 30 meters long, shaped like daggers. No windows, no crew quarters, no life support systems. Just engines, weapons, and computers. Lots of computers. These weren't ships meant to carry humans. These were ships meant to kill. Dr. Henry Walsh met Karen at the command center. He was a thin man with messy hair and eyes that hadn't seen enough sleep. He had been working on artificial intelligence for 20 years, always constrained by ethics committees and safety regulations. For this project, all those constraints had been removed. The control system is ready, Henry said, bringing up displays on the screens. Each ship has its own intelligence, but they're all networked together. They can think, plan, and adapt as a single unit. No human input required once they're activated. Karen watched the simulations playing out on the screens. The ghost ships moved in patterns that hurt to watch, too perfect, too coordinated. Can they be stopped once they're launched? Henry hesitated before answering. Yes, there's a kill code. But if someone jams our communications, or if we're out of range, they'll complete their mission objectives autonomously. That's the point. They can't be negotiated with. Can't be bribed. Can't be scared. They just execute their programming, and their programming is, Karen asked, though she already knew the answer, destroy the Zathric Empire's military capability. All of it. Karen nodded slowly. She had lost a nephew at Colony 7, a bright kid who wanted to be a pilot. He was 12 years old. Show me the weapons systems. Lieutenant Chris Hayes took over the briefing. He was young, but had a gift for destruction. His file said he had designed weapons that Earth's military had refused to build because they were too horrific. This project wanted exactly those kinds of weapons. Each ship carries multiple weapon types, Chris explained, highlighting different sections of the ship designs. Kinetic kill vehicles for hard targets. Nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers for precision work. Relativistic projectiles for maximum impact. And the special payload? The nanites, Karen said quietly. Chris nodded. microscopic machines that can disassemble matter at the molecular level. We got the idea from the Zathrix, actually. They use similar technology for mining. We just weaponized it. A single warhead can reduce a battleship to its component atoms in about 15 minutes. One of the other officers in the room looked uncomfortable. Admiral, these weapons violate every treaty Earth ever signed. The Geneva Convention, the Brussels Accords, the Tokyo Protocols. We ban this kind of warfare for good reasons. Karen turned to face him. Those treaties apply to humans fighting humans. They say nothing about fighting aliens who murder our civilians. And besides, we withdrew from the Galactic Council 3 days ago. We're not bound by their rules anymore. The officer didn't argue further, but Karen could see the doubt in his eyes. Good. Someone needed to remember that what they were doing was monstrous. Someone needed to carry that weight. Intelligence Officer Amanda Price was working at another console, surrounded by holographic displays of the Zathrix home system. She had been gathering data for months, using every spy satellite, every deep space probe, every informant Earth could find. The Zathrix thought they were safe behind their massive defenses. Zathros Prime is the most heavily defended planet in this sector, Amanda reported. 420 warships in the home fleet, 70 orbital defense platforms, planetary shields that can withstand sustained bombardment. They've never been successfully attacked in their entire history. That's about to change, Karen said. What are the weak points? Amanda highlighted several locations on the planet. The shield generators are here, here, and here. Take those out, and the shields fail. The orbital platforms have impressive firepower but slow targeting systems. Our ships are small and fast enough to avoid their fire. The home fleet is the real problem. They're experienced, well-trained, and they outnumber our ghost fleet by about 6-1. Karen studied the displays. 6-1 odds. Against any human fleet, that would be a suicide mission. But the ghost ships weren't human. They didn't care about survival. They didn't feel fear. They would just keep attacking until they won or were destroyed. What about civilian casualties? Someone asked. Our targeting is precise, Henry assured them. The AI can distinguish between military and civilian targets. We're not the Zathrix. We're not going to murder children and call it war. Karen appreciated the distinction, but she wondered if the galaxy would see it that way. To them, humans were about to unleash a fleet of killer machines on a populated world. The fact that those machines would be careful wouldn't make them any less terrifying. The construction crews worked around the clock. 72 ships were being built simultaneously, each one a masterpiece of human engineering and a monument to human rage. Workers who had lost family at Colony 7 volunteered for triple shifts. Materials were diverted from every Earth facility. The entire planet's industrial capacity was focused on this single purpose. Jake. Morris visited the construction sites sometimes. He wasn't part of the military anymore, but Karen let him come anyway. He would float through the facilities, watching the ships take shape, and nobody bothered him. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone knew what he had lost. One day, he found Henry working late in the AI laboratory. The scientist was running simulations. Watching the Ghost Fleet attack the Zathrix homeworld over and over in virtual space, does it bother you? Jake asked. Creating something this destructive? Henry stopped the simulation and turned to face him. Every single day. I wake up knowing I'm building weapons that could kill millions. But then I remember Colony 7. I remember that the Galactic Council is still debating whether what happened there was even wrong. And I get back to work. The Council thinks we're barbarians, Jake said. This will prove them right. Maybe, Henry agreed. Or maybe it will prove that barbarians survive when civilized people won't protect each other. The Zathrix killed your family, and the Council gave them a committee hearing. We're giving them justice. Brutal, ugly justice, but justice nonetheless. Jake didn't argue. He had stopped believing in civilized solutions the day his wife died. 2 weeks before launch, Director Greg Palmer called a final meeting. Every person involved in the Ghost Fleet project crowded into the main conference room: engineers, soldiers, scientists, and factory workers. They represented humanity's best and brightest, all working together to create something dark. Greg stood before them, looking older than his years. In 14 days, we're going to launch these ships. Once they're gone, there's no calling them back. The Zathrix will know we're coming. The Council will condemn us. Other species might embargo us or even attack us. We need to be prepared for the consequences. What if the Council tries to stop us? Someone asked. It won't, Greg said with certainty. They'll talk about stopping us. They'll debate it. They'll form committees. By the time they actually do anything, it will be over. That's the advantage we have. We act while they discuss. Karen stood up. I want everyone here to understand something. What we're doing is necessary, but it's not good. We're creating weapons that can think and kill without human oversight. We're attacking a populated world. We're going to kill people, even if we're careful. This will change how the galaxy sees humanity forever. The room was silent. People looked at each other, weighing their choices. Anyone who wants out, leave now, Karen continued. No judgment, no consequences. But once we launch, everyone involved owns this. Everyone carries the weight. Nobody left. The final preparations took another week. The ships were armed, fueled, and programmed. Henry uploaded the final version of the AI, complete with all the tactical data Amanda had gathered. The Ghost Fleet was ready to hunt. On the last day before launch, Karen sent a message to the Galactic Council. It was copied to every member species, every news organization, every communication channel humanity could access. The message was simple and contained 3 things. First, complete video evidence of the Zathric attack on Colony 7. Every murder, every burning building, every dead child. The galaxy was going to watch what the Zathrics did. Second, a timeline of the Council's response. 3 months of meetings, debates, and procedure. 3 mon. Already, several species had quietly reached out to Earth's remaining diplomatic channels. Not through the Council, but through private, unofficial communications. They wanted to know about defense agreements, technology exchanges, mutual protection treaties. The Council preached unity, but when it came to survival, species looked out for themselves first. VL Kosh wrapped his tentacles around himself in a gesture of distress. This cannot stand. The Council must present a unified response to human aggression. We must show the galaxy that there are consequences for abandoning civilized behavior. Then show us, Paul challenged. Form your committees. Schedule your votes. Debate your sanctions. Do what you do best. But while you're talking, remember that our Ghost Fleet is still out there. Still operational. And now it has a complete database of every Council member species. Their military capabilities, their defensive strategies, their homeworld locations. Has that got everyone's attention? Delegates who had been calling for punishment suddenly looked nervous. The Ghost Fleet had demonstrated capabilities beyond anything the galaxy had seen in modern times. And now Earth was implying they would use those capabilities again if pushed. Are you threatening the Council? Someone demanded. No, Paul said calmly. I'm stating facts. We built those weapons to defend ourselves. We used them once because we had to. We're keeping them operational because we'd be fools not to. Whether we use them again depends entirely on whether anyone else decides to test humanity's patience. The debate continued for hours, but it was mostly meaningless. The Council could pass all the resolutions it wanted, but Earth was already gone. Humanity had withdrawn, taken its technology and its angry machines, and declared itself independent of galactic authority. Short of military action, which none of the Council species seemed willing to attempt, there was nothing they could do. 3 months after the attack on Zathros Prime, the situation had settled into a new normal. Earth maintained trade relations with species that wanted them and ignored those that didn't. Human colonies continued operating, now protected by regular patrols of the Ghost Fleet. The ships had become symbols of human independence. Feared and respected in equal measure, Admiral Karen Rodriguez had retired immediately after the battle, her conscience unable to bear the weight of what she had unleashed. She visited the memorial wall at Colony 7's rebuilt settlement, where 47,000 names were carved into black stone. Her hand traced over the names of people she had avenged but could never bring back. Was it worth it? Someone asked behind her. Karen turned to find Jake Morris standing there. He looked older now, worn down by grief and guilt, and the hollow satisfaction of revenge. I don't know, Karen admitted. We proved we could match violence with violence. We showed the galaxy that humans won't be pushed around. But we also became something darker in the process. Jake nodded slowly. Linda used to say that the measure of civilization is how you treat others when you have power over them. The Zathrix had power over our colony, and they chose murder. We had power over their homeworld, and we chose precision. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe Karen agreed. Or maybe we're just better at justifying what we do. They stood together in silence to people who had lost everything and gained nothing but the cold comfort of revenge. Around them, the rebuilt colony was growing. New families, new children, new life emerging from the ashes. Earth remembered, but Earth also endured. Lieutenant Chris Hayes had been reassigned to training the next generation of Earth's defense forces. On his first day, a young recruit asked the question everyone wanted to know. "Sir, are the stories about the Ghost Fleet true?" Chris looked at the eager young faces and felt old beyond his years. Every word is true. We built machines that could kill without hesitation, without mercy, without conscience. We programmed them with every dirty trick humanity ever learned in centuries of warfare. We unleashed them on a species that had murdered our people. He paused. And it worked? Then why do you look so sad about it? The recruit asked. "'Cause the day we stop being sad about it is the day we become the monsters," Chris replied. "We did what we had to do. We protected our people when no one else would. But we should never be proud of building better killers. We should be ashamed that we had to." Dr. Henry Walsh had locked away the AI control systems in a vault deep beneath Earth's surface. The code that made the Ghost Fleet think, adapt, and kill was stored in isolation, accessible only by direct order from Earth's unified government. He updated the systems regularly, improved the algorithms, made them even more efficient. Just in case. Some nights he dreamed about the machines, about what they had done and what they could do. In his nightmares, they didn't stop at Zathros Prime. They kept going, kept destroying, kept following their programming to its logical conclusion. He would wake up sweating, terrified of his own creation. But he maintained the systems anyway. Because hope was not a defense strategy, Director Greg Palmer addressed the United Earth Assembly 6 months after the attack. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered to hear his report on the current state of galactic relations. "We did what we had to do," Greg began. "We protected our people when the Galactic Council failed us. We proved that humanity will never again wait for permission to defend itself." He paused, looking out at the assembled leaders. "But let's not fool ourselves into thinking this makes us heroes. We're not. We're survivors. And sometimes survival requires doing things that keep you awake at night." He brought up images on the main screen showing Earth's current diplomatic status. 17 species had signed bilateral defense agreements with humanity. 23 maintained trade relations. 41 had imposed their own sanctions, mostly meaningless gestures. The rest were waiting to see which way the wind would blow. "The galaxy knows what we're capable of now," Greg continued. "Some fear us. Some respect us. Some want to be our allies. Some want us destroyed. But they all know one truth. Humanity will never again wait 6 months for justice. We tried it their way. Colony 7 paid the price. So now we do it our way." The Assembly voted to maintain the Ghost Fleet at full operational status, to continue Earth's independent foreign policy, and to authorize the construction of additional automated defense systems. The age of humanity playing nice was officially over. The age of Earth defending itself had begun. The Zathric Empire sent a formal apology directly to Earth, bypassing the Council entirely. The new government, led by reformers who had overthrown the military leadership, acknowledged that the attack on Colony 7 was unprovoked and criminal. They agreed to pay reparations, not because the Council demanded it, because it was the right thing to do. Earth accepted the apology, but kept the Ghost Fleet active. Trust, once broken, was not easily restored. The final scene took place in the council chamber 1 year after the attack. Velkosh was giving a speech about unity, about the importance of following established laws, about how civilization required cooperation and mutual respect. It was a good speech, full of idealistic principles and noble goals. But when the speech ended, delegates filed out quietly, and more than a few stopped by Earth's trade office on their way home, asking quiet questions about defense agreements and technology exchanges. Because for all the council's talk about unity and law, species ultimately looked out for themselves. And having humanity as an ally seemed smarter than having humanity as an enemy. The Ghost Fleet remained on patrol, silent guardians orbiting Earth and its colonies. The ships that had proven humanity's capacity for ruthless efficiency now served as a constant reminder. Attack humans, and humans would respond. Not with lawyers or committees or debates, with steel and fire and machines that knew nothing but how to win. The Galactic Council continued its work, holding meetings, forming committees, debating procedures. But there was an empty seat where Earth once sat, and everyone who passed it remembered. They remembered what happened when bureaucracy met determination, when committees met crisis, when talking met action. Some called humanity barbarians who had rejected civilization. Others called them pragmatists, who understood that sometimes the galaxy only respected strength. But everyone agreed on one thing. Earth's ruthless vengeance had left the galaxy speechless. Not because of what humanity did, but because of what humanity proved. That sometimes the newest, youngest, most primitive species in the galaxy was the one willing to do what everyone else only talked about. That sometimes justice required more than words. That sometimes the price of peace was the capacity for overwhelming violence, and the galaxy would never forget it. Jake Morris stood on his farm in Montana, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Ghost Fleet was patrolling. Somewhere out there, species were debating what humanity had become. Somewhere out there, the Zathric homeworld was still rebuilding from the devastation. He thought about Linda and the kids, about the life they should have had, about the justice that came too late to matter. The revenge was complete, but it felt hollow. It always would. But maybe that was the point. Maybe hollow victory was better than no victory at all. Maybe showing the galaxy that humans protected their own was worth the cost. Maybe the next species, considering an attack on human colonies, would remember what happened to the last one.